to Policing TV. Delighted to be joined here by Emily Spurrell, who is the re-elected PCC for Merseyside. Emily, congratulations on that. Tell us a little bit about the election campaign. What people were telling you on the streets of Merseyside as you were door knocking and other sort of campaigning activities. What sorts of comments were you getting relating to policing and indeed relating to your role as Police and Crime Commissioner?
Well, I should say this was a bit of a different campaign for me because I had a baby just nearly 6 weeks ago. So I have been taking a bit of time off to figure out how to become a mum. So I think I probably haven't been out knocking the streets as much as knocking on doors as much as I have done previously. Having said that, obviously we were out and about, and I did go and speak to a few people, particularly in the last few days. There's a few different issues I think that were coming up. Predominantly, I think people were saying to me that they wanted a general election. A lot of people were saying, we were hoping this would be a general and we were looking for a new government. I think people are fed up with the Tories and kind of their record. And obviously I've got my own views on that. So I think actually a lot of people were saying we want to send a message. And I think that's partly why Labour have done so well in these PCC elections, because people are desperate to say we want to change it in government nationally. So that was definitely a very strong theme that came out when I was chatting to people. In terms of the specifics around some of the campaign issues, a lot of it is what I expected. People want to see more police officers on the streets. They want that visible policing, that neighbourhood policing approach that we know is so important to people. And so there was a lot of comment about kind of what we're doing with the new officers that we've got, as well as some kind of specific issues. So things like road safety, which is a big topic for us in Merseyside, knife crime. And we had quite a bit around retail crime, which was obviously one that's been in the news quite a lot recently. So I had a lot of emails from residents asking what we were doing to protect retail workers as well. So there was some quite kind of specific niche issues that I think particularly mattered to certain groups, but there were some quite kind of common themes around particularly neighbourhood policing and more police on the streets and that kind of thing.
Well, congratulations on the recent arrival. Delighted. I trust that that your new son or daughter is doing well and not causing you too many sleepless nights. We'll come back to the national politics in a moment or two, but let's start. Let's focus for the moment, at least, with Merseyside and what your ambition is as Police and Crime Commissioner over the next 4 years. The term of office for which you've recently got that public endorsement is a further 4 years. So what are you looking to do as PCC in Merseyside for those next 4 years?
I think predominantly I really just want to build on the work we've already started. I think we spent the first 3 years, because obviously we lost a year because of COVID. So I've spent the last 3 years really trying to put in place some kind of key strategies and key directions for things. So for example, the tackling violence against women and girls strategy, our road safety strategy, we've done our serious violence strategy. So although we've done lots of work amongst that, I think I'm just really keen that we really bed in now those strategies and actually deliver on them and start to see some results from that. Because I think we've got the buy-in now from all the different agencies and different partners and communities around what needs to happen. We just now need to do it. So I think for me, that's what I'm really keen on in terms of actually seeing some real success now and progress from some of that. And I think we have already seen some really positive work. So particularly for Merseyside, obviously we had some really awful incidents around firearms and serious violence. But actually, since then, in the last couple of years, we've seen a really good decrease in that. And so we have seen some really positive work in terms of knife crime down and firearm discharges down. So I want to build on that and make sure that we keep that progress. But I think there's other areas where we haven't made that progress, particularly around violence against women and girls and also road safety, where I think we just need to really invest as much in that as we have with the other areas and try and make some progress with it. So those are probably my key areas that I just want to make sure we build on the work we've already done, but just to really start to deliver on some of those strategies that we've published.
It's sounding like consolidation of the preparatory work that you put in with the force in your first 3 years. It's also worth acknowledging perhaps that you had a new chief constable around 3 years ago that I believe you appointed. So working with her in order to deliver on those benefits. Wasn't you that appointed her? It was just
No.
before, was it?
Yes. Yeah. She started just a couple months before I came in.
Okay. Well, but working with her in order to deliver those benefits for which you have the work in progress. The national position, we find ourselves at this election with very considerably more Labour police and crime commissioners and considerably fewer, in consequence, Conservative PCCs. One, David Powis, PCC, Plaid Cymru PCC, re-elected, but otherwise a sea change from from Conservative to Labour police and crime commissioners. As an experienced Labour PCC, one of relatively few experienced Labour PCCs, what sort of advice are you giving to the new Labour PCCs, and might you be offering to them in the coming months?
Well, I am hopefully due to take over as chair of our Labour group of PCC, so I've got a much bigger group than I had anticipated, which is really welcome. And I think we've got a really good mix as well of new PCCs coming in. They've got a huge wealth of experience, different backgrounds, and I think they're all going to add, a lot to the national conversation as well as the work they're going to do locally. So I'm really excited actually to see some of the work that they do. I think in terms of advice, I think it's about really understanding what your local picture is. I think one of the real benefits of this role is that it is a devolved role, so you can really understand the local picture, understand what your kind of key priorities should be, having those conversations with your communities, lots of which they'll have been doing over the election, but really trying to hone in on what are the issues that really matter, and demonstrating the value of this role, because obviously there is still a conversation about the value of PCCs and what we bring to things. And I think you can really see the difference around the challenge and the scrutiny that's offered to policing from PCCs. And so I think there's a lot that you can do with that role. So I think if they just need to try and demonstrate that, I think, and kind of, really show to the communities about the work they're going to do as they go forward. I think at a national level, I think we also want to try and, although we have had this split, and obviously we now have more Labour PCCs than Conservative, actually we do try and work very collaboratively together. As PCCs, we are politicians, and I obviously have my views about the government and politics, but actually I'm very involved in the front line, and I have quite a pragmatic approach in terms of, I just want to solve the problem. I just want to stop more people committing crime. I want to prevent, people from getting stuck in that revolving door. I want to protect victims. And actually, we all probably come from a similar perspective as PCCs around how we might do some of that work. So, although we are from different parties and there will be some issues that we differ on, a lot of the time we want to work collaboratively, and we want to send a very, clear message to the government, whoever that is, around what needs to happen and what powers we want, what resources we need to be able to do some of that work. And I think, that's probably what the public want to see as well. They don't always want to see that kind of, combative approach. They want to see a collaborative approach around, actually, how can we design our criminal system to work better? So I think there's definitely a mixture of that as well.
Within the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, where but it's quite finely balanced between red and blue, Labour and Conservatives. What I'm hearing is you don't see the likelihood of much change in that reasonably collaborative approach. But maybe when it comes to national politics, clearly those elected PCCs were elected with a particular coloured rosette on their lapel, and so maybe on national politics, might there be a more of a national role for PCCs as we are inevitably approaching a general election?
I think the role is the same. I think there's been a lot going on, I think, within policing and criminal justice in the last couple of years, and it's become a real topic of national conversation. And what I'm really keen for is that as PCCs, we are involved in that conversation because we are there and we are on the front line. So we're obviously talking a lot about police conduct and some of the issues that we've seen in London, and that's, that spreads out into a national conversation about the culture and various other things. As PCCs, we play a really integral role in bringing that oversight and that scrutiny to local police forces. And so when the government of whichever colour is talking about, improving accountability for policing, as PCCs, we should absolutely be part of that conversation. And that's what I would say to whoever's in government, whoever the Home Secretary is, because we are really actively involved in that detail, and we can play an important role. Similarly, in terms of, we know that governments of all colours talk about neighbourhood policing because it's so important. Actually, as PCCs, lots of us will have that in our police and crime plans. We will be holding the chief to account in terms of how they deliver on that promise. So I just think, for me, the important bit is PCCs being involved and being part of that conversation, because we've got such a crucial perspective, and we can deliver on a lot of it as well, and help to deliver on the government's agenda. So that, for me, I think is where it's really important that PCs are just part of that conversation.
So what I'm hearing in summary as we come to a close on this is that the APCC maybe business as usual in terms of collaborative effort, a focus of individual PCCs on providing a service to the public, no matter what their politics. But in terms of national, perhaps we'll see more of police and crime commissioners and hear their voice as we come up towards a general election. Would that be fair?
Yes, I think so. And certainly from my perspective, I'm obviously talking, a lot to the shadow front bench, to Yvette Cooper and Alex Norris about what I think a Labour government should be talking about, which they broadly are in terms of that investment in young people, preventing crime, tackling things like mental health that we know can lead to other issues within policing. I think we're really trying to make sure that, I'm hopeful we'll get a Labour government and they are really listening in terms of some of the areas that I think they should be prioritising and my colleagues think they should be prioritising. And so I'm hopeful they will find their way into a manifesto when we eventually get to a general election.
Much more we could speak about, Emily, but we're running out of time. So for the time being, thank you so much for joining Policing TV here. Emily Spurrell, Merseyside PCC, again, thank you.